Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining the first ASBN Town Hall training. We are excited to offer these monthly to our nursing faculty and directors. And thank you also for completing the survey regarding topics that you want included in the town hall trainings. I'm pleased to say that every topic mentioned on the survey feedback will be addressed this year in these town hall trainings. So be sure you pick a training that is interesting to you and join us live or watch the replay. We do understand that Fridays may not be a pristine time for capturing all your faculty or for offering these trainings, but trying to find a time that fits all 69 nursing programs is impossible. And that is why we will record these town hall trainings and upload them to the Arkansas State Board of Nursing YouTube channel for rewatching when the time is best. So for the first town hall training, we are going to look at some ASBN vocabulary, clarifying nursing education terminology that is commonly used by ASBN and frequently misunderstood by faculty and program directors. We all can understand that consistent terminology supports compliance and communication with the Arkansas State Board of Nursing. A lot of our nurse educators are experts in pedagogy and clinical practice, but state boards of nurses often use regulatory language that is legalistic, operational, and sometimes counterintuitive. I know this because I've sat in those chairs that you are sitting in. And when I came to the State Board of Nursing, I had to learn what some of the terminology meant. So that is where a lot of my ideas come from, having been in the shoes that you are now walking in, understanding your struggles and trials that the valleys and the mountains that you go through. So therefore, the learning objectives for this training is to clarify commonly misunderstood or misinterpreted terms with explanations of how the State Board of Nursing usually define them versus how educators often assume they mean. So through this clarification, I hope that you'll be able to connect your curriculum language to ASBN rules and standards. And I also want you to know exactly where to go on the State Board of Nursing website to find the documents that I'm going to reference during today's training. And it'll also help you know where to go when you are searching out a term and its definition. Everything we do comes back to the mission of the Arkansas State Board of Nursing. Established by the Arkansas legislature in 1913 to safeguard the life and health of the citizens of Arkansas, we achieve the mission by developing standards for safe nursing practice, approval of nursing schools, and regulating license to practice nursing. In addition to the Arkansas Nurse Practice Act and state board rules, there are position statements and guidelines for nurses to follow. The State Board of Nursing is responsible for enforcing these laws and rules pertaining to the regulations of nurses, nursing education, and nursing practice. So it all stems back to understanding when you use a term what it definitely means to keep the public safe. When we talk about nursing schools, you are educating those future nurses, but our nursing students are seen as the public. So ensuring that we are approving high quality nursing education programs also protects those nursing students. When you go to the Arkansas State Board of Nursing webpage, there are two main tabs on the right side of the website that nursing programs will use the most. We want you to know how to navigate the website, but these are commonly the most two tabs you will use. They're the Education tab and the Laws and Rules tab. So I encourage you to reference original regulatory documents rather than relying on interpretation or tradition. It's kind of like my pastor will say when he preaches, he'll say, look it up for yourself. Don't take my word. So that's what I'm telling you. Look it up for yourself and don't just take the interpretation or it's traditionally been this way. While we do not have time to go over every term by the State Board of Nursing, these regulatory documents, they provide extensive definitions. You'll notice the general provisions is listed twice. The first listing is to show you that the terms defined are actually included under the Nurse Practice Act. And then you have each subchapter 1 through 9, they have definitions listed within those subchapters that are specific to the topic being discussed. Under the rules heading, the practice of nursing is furthermore detailed specifically under Title 17, Part 120. So be sure and look at both of those areas for general term definitions. I also encourage nursing programs to include a definitions section in your faculty and or student handbook. The education standards do not require this, but it is a best practice. For example, define how your program defines program completion. Does your program completion include withdrawals, or is it just failure to progress due to course failures? That's going to help. Anytime you can define terms, it's going to help those new faculty coming in, and especially if you are also sharing definitions with students. It's always good to reference back to your handbook. Again, that is completely a suggestion. That is not a requirement in the educational standards. Remember, if the Arkansas State Board of Nursing defines a term, you cannot change the definition to fit your program. If ASBN does not define the term, then you can define that term to fit your program. If your program holds accreditation, please be sure, because they will also have definitions. So as I mentioned, the rules heading contains, if you will, pulled out parts that are specific to an area. So if you're looking for how ASBN specifically defines a term related to the standards for nursing education, you're going to refer to Part 125. This Part 125, this is your educational standards. You'll notice there is not a dedicated quote unquote definition area like it was in the general provisions document, but explanations are given within the standards. So I've circled one. For example, if you look under 17 CAR 125-101B, the definition of a pre-licensure nursing program is defined by the text directly above it. Here's another example. Under the requirements for a prerequisite approval, in that section, look at L. This gives a definition of what a physical facility is, which means that all those areas are expected to be included in a physical facility. So now that you know where to go and look up those definitions, let's look at a few commonly misunderstood and misused terms. I'm only going to pull out the ones that are the most frequently used incorrectly, as we don't have enough time to go through all the definitions. But if you're ever in doubt about how a term is defined, if you'll email me or call me, I will certainly help you. So the first one is approval versus accreditation. This is the most common misunderstood term that I have seen, not only by faculty, but also by students. The State Board of Nursing does not grant accreditation. There are only 3 nationally recognized nursing accreditation organizations, which are ASIN, CCNE, and CNEA. A program must hold approval status from the board to be eligible to sit for NCLEX. Arkansas does not require our Arkansas nursing programs to hold accreditation. So please explain this to your students. If I come for a site visit, this is a question that I frequently ask your students if they know their program's approval status, followed by, do you know your accreditation status? Clinical learning experiences is another commonly misunderstood and misused term. This is defined by any hands-on activity. It includes direct patient care and approved alternatives. An alternative could be simulation or observation. Now, observation clinicals, they may be counted, and that depends on how the course learning objectives are written and how the credit hours are noted in your institutional handbook. So the State Board of Nursing realizes that all programs are not set up exactly the same. This is where your academic freedom comes into play. If you have a 4 credit hour course and 2 are for lab and 2 are for didactic, you cannot count those lab experiences as clinical. So look at how your course is defined. And then when it comes to observation clinicals, that might be counted. It depends on when I come to look, I'm going to be looking at your course objectives. If they are strictly there, not saying anything, not doing anything, there's no written work to provide afterward, that's hard to justify as a clinical learning experience. But they can certainly go to a clinical experience and not do direct hands-on, but still write a journal or write a care plan or write a reflective learning experience. That is where we empower you guys, you to look at your learning objectives and measure how you are measuring those learning experiences for your students. Compliance. It's commonly misunderstood that the intent is, well, we're trying, but board meaning is you have evidence to support that you are in compliance of whatever it is we are assessing. It goes back to the saying, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Your policies, they must be implemented exactly as written. When I come to do a site visit or I'm looking at your paper survey, I know you know what you're doing because you can speak it. But then when I'm looking for the evidence, sometimes that's non-existent. So if you don't have evidence to support a standard, and there's no documentation there or a policy to back it up, you become out of compliance. So this matters because we don't want our programs to fail audits despite having good intentions and strong teaching. The curriculum must be intentional. It must be systematic and aligned with your outcomes, your program outcomes. There are standards in the or within the educational standards, there are required curriculum components that must be included. Again, there's some academic freedom there where we say if you don't have a course that is specifically devoted to that topic, then you must have evidence that shows where it is taught throughout the curriculum. For example, if you are in a program where nutrition is a required content, you may choose to offer nutrition as a prerequisite, as a standalone course, either during enrollment in your nursing courses or as a prerequisite. Some programs teach nutrition throughout the curriculum. So as evidence to prove that it is taught throughout the curriculum, there has to be learning objectives specifically devoted to nutrition. So that is how you make your curriculum intentional and systematic. Faculty qualifications. I get a lot of questions about whether or not a faculty is qualified. This is also a very frequent area of non-compliance that I've identified during reviews. A highly educated faculty member may still be deemed unqualified to teach a course under the board rules. So please check those educational standards for the definition of faculty, clinical instructors, simulation faculty, and program directors. If you have a highly educated faculty member, highly qualified faculty member, they might be qualified but not hit the education component that's required, or flip. They may have the education component but not the qualification component. I understand. I understand the struggle that you guys are having to keep or to even find qualified faculty to teach in your program. So you have a conversation with me. There are instances where if all exhaustive measures have been done, where we will grant a temporary waiver. But it's temporary because you have to eventually get in compliance and meet those standards for faculty qualifications. So have a conversation with me if you find yourself in that area where you're not meeting those qualifications, because I certainly do not want to see programs shut down. But at the same time, we have to protect those students and make sure that we are offering faculty that are highly educated and highly qualified to teach. The feasibility study, this is often required before a prerequisite approval is granted. That is going to demonstrate the need, resources, and sustainability. If you are not a new nursing program, you did this in the past. But as you're listening to conversations amongst yourself and at our nursing education committees, and you hear the word feasibility study, those are only required for new nursing programs. Preceptors are defined in the educational standards. There's an entire section devoted to preceptors. When faculty oversee, or faculty must oversee preceptors. It is not turn the student over to the preceptor and never check back in. When faculty oversight is insufficient or undocumented, that's where your deficiencies are going to be cited for the program. So if a program is using preceptors, it is a best practice to have a preceptor handbook. In that handbook, define your terms, your expectations, the qualifications of your preceptors, the responsibilities, not only for the preceptor, but also for the faculty and for the student, so that when your program's next audit comes up, all you have to do is provide me with the preceptor handbook, which should include all of the areas that are required from the educational standards. Again, that is not a requirement. That is a best practice for you to have a preceptor handbook. There are life cycles for our program approval types. It's ever evolving. The very first approval type that and if you were on the education call this Wednesday, you heard one, and two will be coming. A prerequisite approval is permission to pursue the development of the program. The educational standards specifically outline what is required within a prerequisite approval. It is not as extensive as those that currently hold approval when you are submitting your surveys. Once the prerequisite approval is achieved, the program can begin working on the initial approval. The initial approval is where curriculum is developed, where they are sitting on go. They're waiting on the board to approve it. They've hit the go button and they can now start admitting students. They start their curriculum. Before that first cohort of students graduate, I will go and do a survey, a site visit of that program, speak to their students, speak to their faculty and to administration. Then they will, and I will write a report and they'll come back for full approval for the board. Once they obtain their very first full approval, they are good for 3 years. We'll go back in 3 years, do another site visit. If they receive approval, then it's for continued full approval, and they're good for 5 years. So it's an ever-ending process. There is times where approval can be reduced and it'll go down to conditional approval. That means there were consistent deficiencies that have not been corrected that do require correction before approval status can be granted back again. Program outcomes. These are listed in your educational standards. They may not be listed exactly how you are defining it, but they are implied. So let me give you an example. Your program outcomes typically include mandatory metrics. For example, first-time NCLEX pass rates, employer feedback, course feedback, your student governance, your faculty governance, preceptor evaluation, simulation. So programs are to take those metrics that the State Board of Nursing requires you to measure, and from those is where you should be pulling some of your program outcomes to address those in some fashion. You have the academic freedom to determine how those metrics are measured. Programs that are in South Arkansas are different from programs that are in North Arkansas, from Northeast, from Northwest, and we identify those special areas that you have to tailor to meet your student population in those demographics. So that is why we do not say you must specifically do it this way. A common program outcome is the NCLEX pass rates. You may not have NCLEX, quote unquote, NCLEX pass rate listed as a program outcome. You may measure that through a program outcome titled critical thinking or clinical judgment. The program is then going to write an expected level achievement, or how do you know your students are meeting that program outcome? And that all should be listed on your student evaluation plan, your SEP or your program evaluation plan, PEP, whatever it is you're calling that. That's how you prove compliance with expected metrics listed in the educational standards. That was just an example. There's so many more examples. And if you are struggling with that, reach out to me. I'm a bit of a nerd and I love numbers. And so if I can help you pull numbers to identify a program outcome that you may not have, that fits your population and the specifics of your program, I will certainly help you do that. Satellite campuses are often confused with clinical sites or extensions. Satellite campuses are defined within the general provisions. It is defined as a separate location from the main campus. You can still have main sources though that you are using at the main campus. For example, financial aid office may be at the main campus, but you might be offering teaching at the satellite campus. It's not a distant learning because you have a faculty member at that satellite campus. Students are there at that satellite campus. They're not watching from home. So there's where you get your difference between a satellite campus and a distance learning. So satellite campus do require ASB approval for licensure programs. If you're doing an RN to BSN or RN to MSN with the satellite campus, that's post licensure. We do not regulate those programs. Simulation. The State Board of Nursing does limit to 50% of your curriculum, but your curriculum for clinical, but the simulation has to meet the defined educational standards. Please look at those. There have been identified deficiencies in those. You cannot just throw a faculty member into simulation and say, go forth and have fun. Simulation is fun. That is one of the first places I started as an educator 15 years ago, was in the simulation lab. I believe in simulation, but it has to be run effectively. And it has to be, your simulation activities have to be linked back to your program outcomes, or to your course outcomes, which are linked back to your program outcomes. So be sure that you are looking at those educational standards to make sure that you are, that you have a debriefing method used, that you are implementing best practices, whether that be from ANASCUS, or what's the other one? ACE, something simulation user network, the SUN. So you just have to, we don't tell you which one, but we do say you have to have some kind of organizing framework within there. You need a budget that is going to sustain. If you don't know, simulation can be very expensive. So having all of that in place, it is listed in those educational standards. It has to be a faculty guided. If you're using it for clinical, it has to be faculty guided. You can certainly use simulation if you recognize, and a lot of our programs have, and it makes me so proud that you realize we are not getting what we need in a clinical setting. For example, you have an OB rotation, and you go to show up and there's no OB clients there. There's no one. So you bring them to the simulation lab and you can simulate that experience for them. So just remember that it has to be faculty guided, whether it's low fidelity, mid, high fidelity, virtual. There's so many different ways to do simulation. We do not tell you how you have to do it, but just that these standards, that's why we include, you must use a debriefing method. You must include best evidence-based practice within your simulation, and link it to your program outcomes. Student learning outcomes are different than course objectives. This is another one that oftentimes gets confused. You hear SLOs and CLOs. SLO meaning student learning objective, CLO meaning course learning objectives. Your student learning outcomes are going to be a lot more specific than your course. Do you have to have both of these? No. It is, but if you're using them interchangeably, I want you to understand how the state board looks at it and defines it though. We're looking at your course. A student learning objective may be related specifically to an assignment. So make sure they're measurable. If you're using student learning, your course learning objectives as well, they're all measurable competencies that the students have to achieve. Course learning objectives are often listed as, by the end of this course, the student will be able to. If you then have further student learning outcomes, it might be students are expected to score a 70% on this assignment. They're much more specific than your course learning objective. A substantial change, I get questions a lot on this. What do I have to do a change report for this? So examples include curriculum redesign, delivery method changes, or adding a new location. The educational standards speak to exactly what is considered a substantive change. Even if you think the change is minor, always check those educational standards. Send me an email. I do not mind answering those questions. Substantial changes do require ASBN approval before implementation. So keep that in mind. If you are a program that holds accreditation, then a lot of the three, ASIN, CCNE, and CNEA, they have stipulations as well. They may not approve it, but you still have to notify them. So if your program does hold accreditation, you still need to let us know of this substantial change, but you just won't have to provide as much documentation and justification because you do hold accreditation and we default to them. Basically, if they accept the change, we will accept the change. And the board does not take action on those substantial changes if you do hold accreditation. It kind of serves as just an FYI to the board, and that it gives us a documentation trail in case you win the lottery and decide not to come back and this change hadn't been implemented yet, and I'm having to work with a program director to meet them where they are and get them caught up on what should be going on. Don't we teach our students that if they're writing a care plan or a concept maps, that we say if you don't come back tomorrow to take care of this patient, someone ought to be able to pick up your plan of care and follow it exactly. And so think about it that way with being a faculty member. If you weren't coming back into your course, could someone pick up your syllabus and know exactly what to do? If you're a program director and don't return the next day, can someone step in to the role and know exactly how to efficiently run your program? The systematic evaluation plan, SPE, sometimes it's called it's a term that's interchangeable, program evaluation plan, or a PEP. Check if you are accredited, check with your accrediting body on how they want it termed. The definitions in the educational standards say an systematic evaluation plan, but if you call it a PEP, that's not a problem at all. It's a living document. A best practice is to look at your SPE more than just once a year to identify any weak areas. I have seen programs that we look at it at the end of the semester, and while the educational standards do not say how often you should be looking at your evaluation plan, my response is you should be looking at your evaluation plan more frequently than at the end of the year. Think about evaluating a patient. We don't teach our students to develop a plan of care and say, okay, you only need to evaluate at discharge, right? We have our students evaluating constantly. So keep that in mind with your program. Evaluation starts upon implementation, and it's a living document. So I encourage you to take your evaluation plan and break it down and look at specific areas at certain times of the year. Obviously, if you have an area on your evaluation plan that is looking at employer feedback, then may not be the best time to do that if you just graduated students in May. So make your evaluation plan specific to your program, but turn it into a living document, and don't just look at it as this is a one-time thing that we have to do once a year. Constant evaluation. Okay, let's go back to one of the first screenshots that I shared with you about the two most frequent tabs that you're going to use. Navigate, I showed you how to navigate through the laws and rules tab. with the general provisions and then where to find the different subchapters and the parts. So now I want to show you through the education tab. So you can see there's so much information here directly related to nursing education and continuing education. So I want to focus on the program director and faculty information tab. If you lose the link to log into your AOG portal, your AOG is your affidavit of graduation. These are program directors have access to this. Faculty do not. So if you've reported to me that you're a program director, you have access to the AOG portal. This is where you go in and authorize students upon graduation. So there's the link for you if you accidentally lose it. I have walked in and all my bookmarks on my laptop or computer, somehow the gremlins got it. So if you're trying to find where did that link go, go to the State Board of Nursing webpage under education, click on program director and information, and there it is for you. You'll also see there's a heading forms and templates. All the forms and templates that any form that you would submit to me for an educational change, they are in the process of being uploaded here for you so that you know you are always using the most current version. And as I am revising these forms, oftentimes I'm defining terms that are commonly misunderstood on that form. I welcome any feedback at all, please. I want to make the forms usable for you and not a headache, even though, you know, sometimes forms have to be submitted, but I'm trying to make it as easy of a process as possible. Further down on that web page, you'll see an area of presentation and resources, along with information about our town hall trainings. So use those resources to help you, especially on the town hall trainings. I'm excited that there are so many of you present today. And I hope that your faculty and directors that weren't able to view this will go back and rewatch. So if you want to know what's coming, so that you can plan out your calendar, I'd be sure I don't want to miss that. All of them are listed here on the town hall trainings. I did send an email out to the program directors and ask them to complete a survey for student town hall trainings. I've been talking with the licensing department, and they have expressed a need for students to know what to do when they are completing their applications. So we've identified that need and want to offer it to your students. So please reach out to your program director, or if you are a program director, please answer that survey so that we can determine what would be best for your students. Okay. Let's talk. We have about 20 minutes. Has this been helpful? Was there a term that I did not cover? I kind of am hesitant to ask that because I don't have time to, if there might be 30 different terms, I don't have time to hit every one, but I'm still going to put it out there. Where is your most confusion coming from, or did I address this? Where do you typically seek clarification? Is there an idea that you have that would help faculty and directors find those terms a little bit easier? I'm certainly open to those. So do we have any questions or discussion?
Dr. Haley,
Yes.
on
Hi,
the
Gary.
SPE. Hey, Dr. Haley, it's great seeing you again. On the SPE, you said it's a living document. So as we're getting information from the State Board of Nursing in regards to pass rates and things of this nature, we would be able to simply use one of those avenues to document it in the SPE itself. Is this correct?
Sure. Sure. If you get a document from the state board, it is about your program. It is a valid document.
Thank you very much, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yeah. When I send out, and I just sent out those second quarter NCLEX results. If you had a student test during the second quarter, I believe it was the second quarter. So please look at those closely. I did help a program identify that they had a student that listed their program before the program was ever even in existence. So students do that. They will list the wrong program, and it is not something that we catch. That is when they are registering to take the NCLEX to get a date. They have to enter in the program that they graduated from, and we do not see that on our end. So when I send those out, I need you to really, really look at those. We also had a program that a student graduated 10 years ago, never sat, and then decided they would sit. Luckily, they passed, but the program had to do a lot of digging and research to find that student because it was before that program director's time. So please be sure and look at those reports very closely. Send me any edits back. I will make those edits and send them back to you. It could be, before I do ask, I'm so glad you brought that up, Gary. Before you okay, this is it. Wait till I say, okay, that is your results are official, because that student that listed the wrong program may actually be your program. And so I have to move that student to the correct school, which may change your data. So everything that I sent out yesterday is official, but it's a pending official until I send out definite, you're good, unless you send it back to me that says everything is accurate. You'll know that, okay, what you have at that time is official. But again, there may be someone added to you that was put on another form incorrectly.
Thank you. And I will say that this has been very, very advantageous for me personally. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions or discussion?
Hey,
Okay, so
Dr.
yeah,
Haley,
yes.
You had mentioned that you had sent out a something for the students to do the town halls for the students, the survey.
I sent it to
When
you
did you
guys.
send that out? I can't find it in my
Yes,
email.
I sent it, yesterday or the day before, but I will certainly send it to you again.
Okay, thank you. I can
Yes,
find
not a
everything
problem.
for these trainings, but I can't find the survey for the, oh,
So
wait a
it
minute.
was actually down at
I
the
found it.
bottom.
Yes.
Okay,
As soon as I said that, I was reading this again and I saw it. So I'll get that filled out. Thank you.
good.
Sorry.
No problem. So as a thank you for attending live attendees only, you are going to get a free CE. If you are watching this, rewatching it on the YouTube channel, thank you very much for the rewatch, but the CEs are only for those that attended live. So what you need to do is email me to request the survey link. I will send you the survey link, and you'll complete it. It's 2 questions, not a lot of thought process in there. It's just a way to validate that you did attend. Then I will work on creating you a certificate and email that back to you. My email is listed there in case I think I have emailed with just almost every program director listed on here, but I do see some names I'm not familiar with, so I'm anticipating that those are faculty. But easy, brandy.haley@arkansas.gov. Easy to remember. Email me and just say I was there. You don't even have to put anything in the subject line or in the body of the email, just in your subject line. You can put me, I was there, or something that grabs my attention to know to reply back to you. You must send me that email by 6 o'clock today. that, after that, the recording will be uploaded and I'll have no way to justify who attended live and who did the rewatch. So pull up those emails right now and send it on, and I'll be flooded with emails that says I was there. Just be patient with me as I respond back to everyone with the survey link. And we have 15 minutes that I'm giving back to you because I know you guys are very, very busy. Thank you so much for attending the first town hall training. And next month is Scrubs to Syllabi. It is a new faculty orientation targeting new faculty or adjuncts or those needing a refresher to learn how to become an effective educator. Any faculty hired in 2025 or later should attend. I'll be talking about understanding how the educational standards are weaved into the nursing curriculum. I'll give tips for new faculty that are coming from practice into higher education. We'll go over the teaching scope of practice between RNs and LPNs because we have to teach them just a little bit different. So that teaching role differentiation between the PN and the RN in the classroom and the clinical will be discussed as well. So make sure your new faculty or those needing a refresher, everyone is welcome to attend, but it's specifically targeted to those new faculty. So thank you again, everyone, for attending, and I'll send you those survey links as soon as I get your email. Bye-bye.
Fine, thank you.